If you enjoy listening to The Edge, support them by subscribing to The Edge on iTunes, Stitcher, and you can listen through the iHeartRadio app. Get busy listening.
This is The Edge.
The advantage it means.
Hey, that guy just spit on me for no reason.
That's horrible.
Is there some comfort in uncertainty, do you think?
You're a degenerate.
Because Australian Shepherds need action.
Wow. Yeah.
This is The Edge.
That's a self-loathing term that I use.
Oh, got it.
edge-show.com.
Hi, this is Mark Thompson. Welcome to the show. Actress Dana Delany joins us today. She's intelligent, she's fun, she's hot. And as you know, I used to be fun, intelligent, and hot, so you can imagine how excited I am. Dana goes through some great show business stories, takes us through her life on China Beach and in Tombstone, working with Garry Marshall, becoming famous in Paris. It'll all make sense when you hear the show. Michael Shores just returned from 2 weeks covering Washington, the White House and Capitol Hill, and we're excited to have him back as well. So that'll be the Fast 15. We'll cover politics and a couple of other items. So glad that you could be here. Thank you for subscribing to the show. Thank you for sharing this show. Thank you for contributing to the show through the PayPal link on our website at edge-show.com. A few of you have clicked that link and left us even small amounts of money, and we so appreciate that. I mean, whatever you leave helps keep the lights on at this show. And if you shop on Amazon, as so many of us do, you click through the website, edge-show.com, the Amazon link. You'll see it on the side. You'll see it on the bottom. You'll see it on the top. If you click that link, it's the same Amazon, but we get a little piece of whatever you spend there. And again, that helps support the show. Thanks for however you show us love. And now, let's get started. Time for the Fast 15, politics, and more with Michael Shores.
Hey, how are you guys? I've missed you. No, this is very nice. Apparently you missed me too.
Everybody sit down. Let's just get into things. First of all, you were in Washington covering the White House for the last 2 weeks.
And the Capitol. Mostly the Capitol, actually, Mark. The White House was
dark because the president was away, yeah.
I mean, we covered a lot of his trip because the network I was covering it for covers the Middle East pretty extensively. And the
president was in the Middle East.
The president was in the Middle East.
What was the reaction on Capitol Hill and in Washington to what was going on there?
It was interesting. Very little reaction. I mean, it was almost as if it didn't matter. Every day between 5 and 6:41, there would be a story that broke about the White House, about Russia, about Flynn or Comey or Kushner, every single day. And it really took away from the president's trip. And there wasn't a great deal of coverage on it, except for some of the flubs he made, and because in fairness, and I say this objectively, he didn't get very much done over there, right? The most that he got done is potentially a negative. I mean, he didn't invoke any kind of support, outwardly explicit support for Article 5 of the NATO, which is the mutual defense of NATO.
That was pretty huge. Kind of the only reason NATO exists,
exactly,
right? Is this mutual
exactly.
defense
And then
pact.
when he was in Taormina, Sicily with the G7, he did not say that we were going to stay in the Paris Climate Accord. And if that's the case, that's news, but it's a negative. He didn't come home with anything, a contract to sell weaponry to Saudi Arabia, but that happens all the time, and it wasn't one of it wasn't breaking news that happened.
Yeah, and that was just because you mentioned it, advertised as jobs, jobs, jobs. I mean, this is what Donald Trump does very well, I think. Yeah. He's on social media, and the last 3 words on his tweet in caps, jobs, jobs, jobs. And the truth is that most of those jobs will exist in Saudi Arabia, as it turns out.
Correct. And I mean, we can get into the whole philosophy of the jobs, 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 and what is correct and what isn't. It doesn't matter what's correct, as we now know. If he says that to his minions who love him and want to believe him and not believe you or me saying that there aren't going to really be too many jobs created from that, then it doesn't matter. But so it was not a groundbreaking and a news-making trip in Israel. It didn't really get what it wanted. So there wasn't really a much to report. And then there was the distraction every evening that sort of took those people away.
2 great photo ops out of the Middle East, though. One was the Western Wall, of course, with the president there. And he was the first president to visit the Western Wall.
Yeah, that's right. The first sitting president to visit the Western Wall.
And the second was everybody's hand on that orb.
Yeah, that was bizarre, right?
Yeah.
And that wasn't what you wanted to take away from this trip to be if you're the White House, I don't think. But again, the presidents go over there for photo ops. They go over there to be seen on the world stage. Some of them weren't as successful. I would say that the NATO stuff was not successful, getting upbraided by Merkel. and that whole thing pushing his way to the front of the line, which didn't bother me, actually. A lot of people made a big thing about that when he pushed his way to the front. And,
Sure.
But I don't think it really mattered, and I think nobody was bothered by it except people who saw it as he's being Donald Trump. But I'm sure that there was a choreography to it, and, I'm supposed to stand here. Let me get by and stand here. But that was me.
Some things you got to give the guy a pass on.
Right, no, agree. And I jump on him for enough, and I think there's more substantive stuff to jump on him. And if I'm wrong, then it was absolutely obnoxious and terrible. But I just sort of think that those things are okay. The President of the United States has to be here, and the Prime Minister of Italy has to be here, and the Montenegro here. I just think that was a case of what that was. But I don't know. And if it's the opposite, then I'm wrong.
So there is one Jared that's happy this week, and it's the Jared from Subway. Because
right. he had the best week for Jared. I think also Jared the jewelers were in. Wasn't there? They were in trouble, right?
Hundreds alleged sex discrimination and harassment at Jared's jewelry company.
Okay. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you're right. So there are two Jareds happy.
Jared, do not name your kid or your business or your spokesperson Jared.
Look, this guy, Jared Kushner, he's in charge of a lot of stuff, and you've talked about the fact, and you weren't down on him from the standpoint of anything that he was doing wrong at that time. You just thought, well, this is a lot to put on a plate of a guy who's an absolute rookie in most everything he touches.
Yeah.
But this past week, it's widely reported. From where did the information come on Kushner's back channel that he was trying to build with the Russians?
The story was from the Washington Post, and it was sourced from 2 former White House officials and 1 current, apparently.
And what he was trying to do was establish a communications line during the transition with the Russians that was not using regular government communications.
And would be based at a Russian location here in the United States, which would be an embassy, a residence, some kind of an official residence or official location.
So he's saying to the Russians, hey, you guys set up with your stuff and at your place somewhere where we can talk to better facilitate this transition.
Yeah.
The United States was talking about sanctions on Russia at that time.
Correct. One thing, and I'm glad you brought that up, Mark. Barack Obama was president of the United States at that time. This was not just a circuitous route around legality as it pertained to the Trump transition. This was going around the United States government at that time. So it's not just about the Trump administration and Trump people. It's about doing something behind the backs when he wasn't even in the office yet, when Barack Obama was president.
And a lot of people are suspicious that, what holdings does the Kushner family, does the Trump organization have in Russia? How much money do they owe the banks? This kind of thing. And it's all speculation because we don't really know, having not seen tax returns and the like. But how this all came to light was that Michael Flynn was under investigation for his connections with the Russians, and we know he had those.
Yes.
Flynn was also in contact with some other people who we didn't know who they were.
Correct.
Turns out that guy who was spearheading this effort you just described was Jared Kushner.
Right. And you also have to remember he has a position in the White House now that didn't need Senate confirmation. Unlike, people say, well, Bobby Kennedy worked for John. He was the Attorney General. Attorney General goes before the Senate, is vetted, right? This is just an advisor in the White House, and who's his son-in-law. And it's the first time that someone in the family that he keeps so close to him, he has security clearance. Jared Kushner has security clearance, which, some congressmen put a letter together led by Don Beyer of Virginia, who's not a name you probably know, but he put a letter together to strip his security clearance, and just look for them to do that the moment they get back from recess, is to just put that through as quickly as they can.
To be kind to Jared Kushner in this situation, to give him the benefit of all doubts, could it be that it was just a naive thing that he was doing? But he was saying, look, my father-in-law, Donald Trump, thinks that he might be wiretapped, and so I'm going to try to talk to the Russians without the possibility of a U.S. wiretap.
Could it be? Possibly. I don't think naive comes into play here. I think it's crafty. I don't think that you ask for something like that out of naivete. The naivete is stupidity to think that you could just get away with it, that you could actually trust Russians to not go back, as Kislyak did apparently, and tell other Russians in Moscow that this was going on. So you can call it whatever you want. I don't think that's where you give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, you give him the benefit of the doubt if he was doing this for the betterment of the country with nothing nefarious there and neglected to come forward with it because he thought that would be the most efficient way of doing it. But he also lied. He lied on his security clearances about having had contact with Russians. That's a felony. That's treason. You can get 5 years for that. And there are 2 counts that await him if that's the case, if we're right. So I'll give you some benefit of the doubt. I mean, I just painted the picture of what it would be. I'm not saying that he did this because I don't know, and I'm not saying that what he did was treason. But there's something that he tried to hide. And when you try and hide something, I think it means you did something wrong.
Well, you've heard me many times on this show try to give people the benefit of the doubt because I don't want to seem too arch on this show like I'm anti-GOP or anti... On this one, I think on your last point, it becomes very difficult to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. And that lie you're talking about on that forum, contact with the Russians...
Yeah.
is not something that you go, oh, my God, I just completely forgot. I met with the head of the Russian state-owned bank at Trump Tower.
And by the way, the Russian ambassador was there, and so too was the National Security Agency advisor-to-be, Michael Flynn. You don't forget that. And you don't, especially if you're not in cahoots with Michael Flynn, because you assume he's going to say on his form, yeah, I was with Jared Kushner and Kislyak and this Russian banker.
Yeah. Hey, we like to get into some other things. And, they sell out the Staples Center with people playing against each other on video games, as you know. The esports business is amazing.
Off the charts now.
So, I mean, literally, they sell out huge arenas with these guys. These are superstars. These are like the Michael Jordans of gaming. Thank you. So now they're talking about these guys who play these video games in front of big groups worldwide, selling out arenas, forming a union. And, I mean, you understand, some of these guys
there's an NBA players union. Why wouldn't there be that?
They're 16, 17 years old, a lot of them. I mean, some of these guys are making millions, and they're not older than 20. And here's the surprising thing about it. Who wants that union? Not the players, the owners.
The owners of what, though?
The owners of these e-sporting events.
Oh, really?
Because what happens is these guys sign these deals, contracts of all sorts, and they don't pay attention to what they are. Why? Because they're 16, 17, 20 years old or whatever, or because they just aren't inclined to do that kind of thing, whatever. They're gamers. They're worried about their game. They're not worried about legal documents. So they sign these terms and conditions, just the way we all kind of approve terms and conditions. And the terms and conditions stipulate that they have to promote the event, let's say, or show up at a certain time. And they completely blow it off. And then they do something even more clever. They gather their social media following to bitch out the owner, to dump on the owner. So the owner can't even complain.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
The guys who want this are these owners of these different events.
What a great reversal. I love that. I love that.
Really thought it was great.
I want to add before we go, when you're listening to this, wherever you are in the world, this is what's happening as you're listening to it in this little time frame. The National Hockey League Stanley Cup Finals are being played. Do yourself a favor and watch. It's just fantastic if you've never watched the Stanley Cup Finals. And you get to see Sidney Crosby, who is the best hockey player in the world. And it's always, even if you don't care about hockey, it's always great to see someone who's the best at what they do in the world do it. He'll have a good time.
So he hits that little black thing around?
Yeah, he does indeed. Yeah. I mean, that's not how everybody looks at it, but he slaps rubber and he does it well.
And he can skate backward, right?
Yeah, some of them do, and he's one of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed. Michael Shore, everybody!
Thank you. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Michael!
edge-show.com. edge-show.com. The hyphen is stupid. edge-show.com.
edge-show.com.
This is The Edge.
I feel there's an actress inside me, Dana Delany, just waiting to bust out. Please welcome Dana Delany. Yes. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, thank you.
How'd you manage this, Mark?
2-time Emmy winner. Yeah.
Seriously.
Pretty amazing.
Is that 2 more Emmys than you, or?
I have 2 Emmys as well, but they're not prime time.
Oh, they're just
Nor were they actually awarded to me specifically.
You just bought them on eBay?
I have them. Welcome, Dana Delany.
Thank you.
It's so cool to have you here, and I forgotten, but realized later in kind of looking over your past and what you're into, that you and I think, met at a scleroderma event initially.
Oh, really?
Because Sharon was a friend of mine. There's this horrible illness called scleroderma, which is a hardening of the tissue on both the inside and outside of the body.
Right.
I had an aunt who suffered from it.
Oh,
It affects women, I think, more than men primarily.
Yes, usually, yeah.
Anyway, this magnificent person named Sharon Monsky started this charity, the Scleroderma Foundation. Is that what it's-
Scleroderma Research Foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're having their event in June, and they're honoring Bob Saget.
Yeah,
Whose sister died of scleroderma.
Yeah, he's really been one of those guys who oddly became active in it prior to his, I think.
Well, that's where, yes, Bob
sister
and I
getting it.
were both at the benefit with Gay, his sister, when we met Sharon. And then a year later, his sister was diagnosed. It was bizarre. So we always made the joke, don't go to one of those benefits.
That is really random.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
And
Yeah.
then Bob made a movie about his sister, and I played his sister.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. He did a really good job.
He's a pal. He's been on the show as well, and he's one of those guys who just stayed relevant and redefined a little bit who he is, but also like what he does, meaning he's directed and now written.
Now he's the dirty dad.
Yeah, right. That's kind of, you always felt like that was there, but
it was there.
Yeah, it was always there.
That was there in his act before he was Mr. Clean, for sure. And then
Saget's act was always
Then
dirty.
he spent 10 years trying to remind people, hey, I'm filthy, remember?
Yeah,
I'm filthy.
Absolutely true. His HBO special, one of them was, I thought, wow, Bob, you really want to make the point here. Yeah, because Full House was just one of those things that dry cleaned his image. But, Heather will tell you, Dana Delany, that I have a special regard for actors who come from a background on the stage. Because I feel that's where the real acting is going on, Dana. Am I right?
Yeah, Mark is a huge fan of Broadway legit theater, if you will.
That's fantastic.
Yes, legit theater of all kinds, experimental theater. I'm a creature of the theater, Dana Delany, and I was delighted to see that you too come up with legit theater roots.
Well, that's when I was growing up, that's where you were told to start. You had to start in the theater. You did not do TV. That was looked down upon. Maybe movies, but not TV. But that's all changed.
Well, another thing that's changed is TV and movies were sort of segregated. If you were a TV actor, you didn't do movies, and if you were a movie actor, you didn't do TV. Now you see movie actors running to TV, and
now they're taking my jobs.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
I mean,
Get out of
it trickles
here.
down all the way to the
Yes.
day player roles where I'm like, wait a second.
No, it's always
Even commercials I can't book.
It's
because
still the
they're
1% at the top. Still.
Yeah.
No, and it's funny, as a voiceover actor, we always had our work, but now they've come in for that too. Big stars in two areas. Animation, which used to be, I was never in that club, but a club of really talented animation voiceover people. And then commercial and promo stuff, and now that just goes to,
Now John Hamm is just taking everything.
He's taking
right?
everything.
Yep.
And there's
Heather's stuff,
insane.
even.
Although he paid his dues.
that really is everything. Yeah.
I mean, you can't turn on the radio or TV without seeing John Hamm or hearing him.
Yeah. But he came to a success late in life, so I don't begrudge him that.
And Mad Men, it was all him pitching things. So you
That's funny,
get to
yes.
audition
That's
him
true,
just by
huh?
watching Mad Men.
That's true, yeah. That's true.
He was good at it.
I always feel also in this town, tell me if you buy this at all, that there are ad agencies where they really just want to work with Dana Delany or John Hamm because the account exec wants to work with Dana Delany or John Hamm. I mean, I think there's a part of it that goes down that way.
Oh,
because,
I think so too.
Yeah.
For sure. I was at a baby shower the other day, and there's an ad person who said, "Oh, what kind of commercials have you done?" I said, "Oh, whatever." And I said, "What do you, what accounts do you guys have?" And she ticks off 5 accounts that were all, Jen Garner, ticks off all 5 celebrity accounts. And I was like, yeah, that's where my jobs have gone.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And that's what they're so excited.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's true in animation too, because I was the voice of Lois Lane for a long time.
Oh, no way.
And I'm sure there was some regular animation people who said, well, how come she's doing it? She's not, a voiceover person. But then I got bumped out because the writers wanted to meet the new girl in town. Then it was Christina Hendricks, and then it was Stana Katic, and they want to meet the young girl in town, which I get. I understand that.
But still.
I have to say, as a TV writer, though, and there's this sort of thing that happens, especially when early in your career, where you realize, oh my God, I actually can get that person who I was thinking of.
Yeah.
When before it was a fantasy, and now it's like, no, if you call them, they'll probably come in.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And we know those people in that world. It's kind of nerdy.
Yeah, it is.
Right. Oh, my God.
Myself excluded, of course.
Obviously.
You started, as I say, through legit theater. I was really interested in the fact that you were in South Pacific because I loved South Pacific. And you were in South Pacific. Were you not, Dana Delaney?
In high school.
Yes.
I was about to ask you in high school.
In high school, exactly.
My senior year in high school.
You played the female lead. You know that,
Yes.
I want to wash that man right out of my hand.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the male lead.
Yes.
Once you have found, is that?
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Very good job.
Shannon meeting. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
And that song always brings me to tears. I mean, literally.
Once you have found her, never let her go.
This nearly was mine, is what he's singing. Yeah.
That's hard. That's a hard song to sing.
I just wanted to see if Mark could cry.
I was
know,
choking up a little bit. If you, in 10 more seconds, I would have choked up.
If I would have held eye contact,
15
a
more
little
seconds, I
more,
would have
a little
begged
more
for you
eye
to stop.
contact.
Who played that role in her production?
Wasn't there another big Broadway actor who was in your position?
That would be Jimmy Spader. James Spader was younger than me. I think I was a senior and he was a freshman, and he did not play that role.
He played slightly creepy guy, number 2.
Peter Capitan played that role, who sadly was one of the early people who died of AIDS, which is very sad because he was a wonderful guy.
But not before he went on and did great things on
He
Broadway.
did, yes, he did do things on Broadway. But a funny story about that is James Spader was a freshman, and you know that role of Nellie Forbush is so iconic, and it was like all the teachers. This was at Andover. All the teachers were like wanted to meet with me, apropos of what we were saying, right?
No way.
After I did the play, I'm in the school as a senior. They wanted to meet with me because they had been in World War II. And it brought back so much nostalgia for them. It was like their whole life. But then I get this little note, and I have it somewhere, handwritten note from Jimmy Spader saying that one day he was going to marry me. And I think he was 14 at the time when he wrote it. Yeah.
Ballsy.
Never followed through on that.
That is so sweet.
That's great.
of
That really is
him.
sweet.
I reminded him of that later. He did not like that.
I don't know why. Very, very cool. But you came out then you grew up on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. You came out to L.A. and Hollywood. Did you come out here with a job or you didn't have a job?
Yes, I came out here with a play that I had done off Broadway that had done well that Nick Kazan wrote, and they were doing it at the Odyssey out here, so I did it out here too, called Blood Moon.
And that was a foothold. That's all you needed?
Yeah, once people came to see the play, and then I started getting, casting people and acting jobs, and yeah, I stayed.
Yeah. You were the it girl for a long time, China Beach. I mean, that was a great dramatic role, but it also, I feel as though, are the memorable thing in that series.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Helgenberger, too.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nope.
Thank you.
It's Dana.
But, it was a very well-written show. I was lucky, really lucky.
I mean, my parents lived for that show.
Wow.
Yeah.
They had good
loved
taste.
it, loved it, loved it, loved it. As a matter of fact, they're probably going to lose their mind when I tell them that you're here.
I like it was your parents.
I know. That's what I hear, too.
Well,
when
like,
somebody
I
says
wasn't allowed
that.
to watch TV, but they would talk about
That
it.
doesn't help. That
That's-
doesn't
I
help.
get that.
true.
No, it's
That is
fine.
a regular Mystery Science Theater comment I get. My parents love that show.
No, they were just so into, they're into NCIS now. My dad's a vet, and
Yeah.
they love all the CBS shows. So that was kind of like the.
Where was your father a vet? Where did he?
He was based in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, but he was Vietnam War.
Vietnam
Is that
War.
what you mean? Yeah, he was
Yeah,
shot down
that
in
era.
Vietnam.
He was. Oh well, no one might. That show came on 20 years after the war ended, and it was finally time for people to start talking about it. So it was good.
Yeah, he didn't talk about it for a long time.
Yeah, I got a lot of letters from vets saying, I don't talk about this, and you helped me, and I went to, get help for my PTSD and that kind of thing. That was great.
He, his rescue was being filmed for a training video that day. So I actually found it in the basement.
Wow.
And it had no sound. And I uploaded it, it's reel to reel.
Wow.
And so I had it transferred. And then it wasn't that many years ago, I got him to, into my iPhone, narrate it. Because it's him literally
So your dad
coming up
hauled
out of the jungle.
ocean. Oh, the
jungle.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
canopy, put a tree penetrator down. So I finally got him
They
to.
filmed it.
Yeah, just total accident.
Do you
They
know
were
where
getting-
in Vietnam he was?
It was over Laos.
Wow. So he
wow.
was in the
Supposed to be
forbidden
there.
war.
Yeah,
He's a Red River rat.
Not even allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
He's one of those few that went over the Red River and came back.
Wow.
So anyway.
I know. That's
a great story.
That's not a so anyway. That's a great story.
You should go back to Vietnam with your parents.
You
Take
know,
a trip there.
I wonder. I've never even approached him about that, and I wonder if that's something he would be interested in.
Some guys
doing.
don't want to go back, but it's really beautiful.
He hasn't been back. I do know that. But when I call him to tell him that you were here, I'll
maybe take
I'll say
a
that you
boat.
recommended.
Maybe
a boat
says
this
we
time.
should go. I was just there 2 months ago, and I was there where China Beach is, Da Nang.
Da Nang,
right?
yeah, right outside of Da Nang, yep.
Yeah.
Except it was a Crystal cruise.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Let me tell you something, Josh. That champagne was dangerous. Some of it had been open for many hours.
Wow. But you got off the boat, right? You went
well,
on shore.
Well, he hired someone to get off the boat.
But they were very detailed in telling me what Da Nang was like.
And they took his phone.
But, there are sea snakes around there, so you do want to be careful.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah.
The place was crawling with sea snakes.
I'm sure your purser would have taken care
I
of
was
it.
just about to get to the sea snakes. No, I did get off the boat, of course, and I met a bunch of Vietnam vets over there, and it was weird. This is the real weird thing. They're all there, and I meet them at these different shops that sell stuff, and you see them in these big buses that I think usually have some signage associated with being Vietnam vets, and they seem like regular tourists, sort of consumers, and not particularly shook up. And when I went over to them, got really emotional. I mean, that was an intense war that I grew up with. That was the war that I associate with my life as a kid. It really was intense for me to talk to these guys. And it was, though markedly more emotional for me than it was for them, it seemed.
Yeah.
There was one guy who was that guy, who's the
Dodger character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really powerful and special and a great place to go.
I know what you mean, because I went for the first time in 1987. We didn't have relations yet with Vietnam, and it was still a lot of black market and scary. And I just remember crying almost the whole time just out of guilt, because the people were so nice and so beautiful and welcoming, and I just felt such guilt about what we had done there.
It's interesting. That's a great insight that I honestly hadn't figured, but I think that's part of it. I feel so bad that we were there.
And a lot of them did too. That was, my dad wasn't drafted into the Vietnam War, but he had signed up for the Air Force to go through school, and kind of how you did. And a lot of those guys didn't necessarily 100% believe in it, but they believed in their country.
Oh, almost to a man, I think they had issues with it.
Very confusing.
And more and more the longer it went too.
Yeah.
And more became clear that it was pointless.
Yeah.
But didn't mean to get off on it.
Sorry.
It was that was really good. I mean, first of all, the story about your dad and that I'd just been there, sort of.
Yeah, whatever, Mark.
No, I was.
You were scared your plane was going to go down. Oh no, that was something.
I'm impressed that you were on a cruise. I could never go on a cruise.
Well,
ever.
Here's why you can't go on a cruise, because you're Dana Delany.
Yeah, I was going to say you'd be stuck
It's
with
awful.
fans.
I get
on a
seasick
boat.
and I'm claustrophobic. I can't imagine anything worse.
I'm claustrophobic.
I hate people. So.
And I'm a misanthrope. Yes.
Yeah. So much for the cruise pitch later. You guys sound like you're all out.
We're definitely not sponsored.
Yeah, I hope they're not one of your advertisers.
I hadn't been on a cruise in 20 years. Took a cruise like to the Caribbean, I think 20 years ago, and hated it for all the reasons you mentioned. I thought the cabins were too small. I wanted to get off the thing. The whole thing made me sick. Then I was offered a free cruise to Alaska on Crystal Cruise. So Crystal's
It's not Crystal Cruise.
No, I added that just to give him a little.
That's the rapper cruise.
It is a high. It's a top tier cruise, certainly, Dana. So I go up to Alaska on Crystal Cruises, and it's spectacular. I mean, I always wanted to go to Alaska, and I went on all the excursions, and I saw bald eagles, and I saw just so much wilderness. It was the greatest. And I saw the glacier calving and all that stuff.
And I hear that's the best way to see Alaska.
I think there's no other way to see so much.
Also, the best way to see Southeast Asia, it turns out.
It's the best way to see a lot of places if you want just a sampler of it.
I bet they didn't have snake on your.
Not a lot of sea snakes.
Yeah.
Oddly, not
He's
a
a
lot of sea
vegan
snakes.
anyway. So
Yeah. But I was really taken in, so planned the next one to Asia. and it's a 2-week cruise, and you go to all these places like Cambodia, Vietnam, went to China and Singapore. So
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And again, it's just a sampler. You want to go. I definitely want to go back to Saigon.
Maybe you and my dad can.
Yeah, we can put that together because I obviously don't have anybody here that I can take. This is a question we ask a lot of people, and when I say we, I mean I do, because I don't know if these guys approve of it. But at the peak,
It's usually financial related. I can tell this isn't going that direction.
Do you need
though.
some money?
Heather's right. Usually I'm asking. So at the peak of China Beach, how much were you? No, but that's not what this is.
Not far from
not
true.
much.
This is not what this is. I'm curious more like to be the toast of the town for, more than just an instant. It was, really whether you try to resist, because that, no matter how hot it gets, it will cool always.
Right.
So at the intensity of that heat, I wonder if you try to resist getting drawn in, or because you come from a very smart world, or if you it's too impossible to resist it.
It's a good question, actually. I think I was embarrassed by it. It felt awkward to me just because of who I am. And like you said, from New England, it's not something you're supposed to do. And I'm not sure I handled it that well. Sometimes I would use humor to make jokes that were not taken the right way, that maybe sounded snotty, and it was just me being embarrassed by the whole thing.
Like you would say something like, "Oh, it's not that big a show," or "What?"
It's
not that big a deal. Or
or I would overcompensate and try to be, funny just because I thought I had to put on a show. If I was on Letterman or something, and I would just try to be outrageous because I thought that's what you were supposed to do on those shows because they put so much pressure on you to come up with a story.
Right. Oh, sure.
And, I'm an actor. I'm not a comedian. So I think, I don't know that I handled it so well, actually. I'm not sure.
Did you ever, when you're going to do one of those talk shows and you're doing the promotion for the series, hit up one of the writers and go, "Can you write me a good story?"
No, I never. I probably should have. I never did that. I have to say I loved being on Johnny Carson. Loved it. Because he made you look good, It wasn't about him looking good. It was about the guest looking good. And I would come off that show thinking I was the funniest person in the world. Of course I wasn't, but he made you feel that way.
But yeah, he would listen and laugh as opposed to like Leno, who would wait for his turn just to jump on you. Yeah.
Yes. Although I have to say, I did Leno's show right before he was going off the air. And he was really nice and humbled by the whole thing.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I also think that Jay gets a bad rap. I think he might in his mind have been waiting to say the funny thing, but I mean, that's what a lot of comedians do. But I feel as though he didn't make people look bad. Sometimes, Letterman, love him though we do. I mean, he wasn't always such a great guy.
He scared me as a viewer. I can't even imagine being a guest.
He's funny because I was madly in love with Letterman like everybody was back then, and it was at the height of his career. And I remember getting off the show thinking, "Oh, that was great," and then my girlfriends would say, "He was so mean to you," and I think he was. I didn't even notice.
Yeah, he had the reputation of being mean. I don't know.
He was curmudgeonly, he was, I think, intimidating too. I would be probably intimidated going on his show, and especially as an actor instead of a comic too, is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, comics can play the moment in so many different ways.
And you're getting set up for jokes that you have and work a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that is part of that world. It's funny you mentioned it. I hadn't even thought about it. But yeah, when you're being trucked from show to show and interview to interview, it seems to take on almost as much importance as being on and doing the show. I mean,
it's true. And some people are really, really good at it. I didn't study that technique. And I look at young girls now and they're so good at it. Somebody like Jennifer Lawrence, I think she's fantastic at those shows,
Yeah, she owns it when she's on. But it feels like to me, I mean, it's always felt like this to me, is that if you're a young actress, there's this feeling of you're being paraded out there as much as being a guest,
Yeah. I think I was just raised to be too nice and polite that I went along with whatever they were doing, whereas I think somebody like Jennifer Lawrence makes it her conversation.
Right.
She talks about what she wants to talk about, which is great.
You were chosen to be one of People's 50 Most Beautiful People.
Right.
I love that. I love that because it's so driven by so many different things, of course.
Oh, it's only if you happen to be hot at the moment.
Right,
You're not going to be anywhere near that magazine if I'm sitting here in your radio station.
Yeah. Dana, People Magazine on the phone.
a selfie? We're reevaluating
Well,
everybody.
it's funny because I think I was
The auditions for 50th Most Beautiful People.
I think the first time I did it was on that list was on China Beach, and then I was again on the list, which is flattering. Like 25 years later, when I was doing Body of Proof, but I mean, I'm very aware of why I was on that list.
Yeah, but I mean that is pretty cool.
That's pretty good.
Look, you can't be Bow Wow to get on the list. All right.
And the second one has to feel better than the first
Yes,
one.
absolutely.
sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
You were in Tombstone. Mm-hmm. I like Tombstone just because of all the people who were in it.
Yeah, that was an amazing cast.
It's a sick cast.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Let me see if I can find it. I got to try to find it because it's an insane list.
Well, we have to address the elephant in the room because we just lost 2 cast members from Tombstone.
Oh,
Both
that's right.
Bill
Yeah.
Paxton and Powers Booth.
Yeah, that's
Like in the
right.
last
Powers
month,
Booth.
which is just really tragic.
Bill Paxton and Powers Booth both were in Tombstone, just died.
Mm-hmm.
So weird when people so young die.
Shocking. And both from natural causes, I think.
Well, Bill Paxton, didn't he have surgery? Wasn't he in
He did have surgery, and I'm a little anti-surgery and doctor, so I'm not going to say anything about that.
Well,
But yeah, I mean, any routine surgery can turn into
Yeah.
a fatal surgery at any moment. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of human error in surgery.
there's a lot of human error in hospitals.
Speaking as a happy survivor of several surgeries, I can say good things happen too.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Good.
Yeah. Well, look, if you need surgery, you don't have a lot of choices,
Yeah.
and I'm sure he needed
Yeah.
it. He had a damaged heart valve.
That's so fixable, you know?
You'd think,
Yeah.
So we mentioned Bill Paxton and Powers Booth. You had actors like Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer. You'll have to help me. Sam Elliott was in the movie.
Jeez.
Billy Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob Thornton.
Mm-hmm.
Charlton Heston was in the movie?
It was originally supposed to be Robert Mitchum, and then he got sick.
Really?
So Charlton Heston, I'll never forget meeting Charlton Heston on the set. I don't think I was even in the scene, but I was shooting something next, so I went over and said hello to him. Well, I was there, and he came up to me and was like, "Hello, I'm Charlton Heston." I said, "Yes, you are." But Robert Mitchum ended up doing the voiceover, I believe.
Yeah, they say narrated by Robert Mitchum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that pre-Sling Blade, Billy Bob Thornton?
Well, it's an interesting story about that. This was the heavier set Billy Bob Thornton in Tombstone, and I think he tells it that he felt embarrassed. He felt somehow embarrassed or humiliated by Val Kilmer on the set, and maybe only in his own head. I don't know what happened, but he would go home back to his hotel room at night and look in the mirror and do that character of some Sling Blade, basically, and say, "You're an idiot, you dummy," and just berate himself.
Oh my God!
Really?
And that's how the character got developed.
Born of self-loathing.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Most good art is actually born of self-loathing. But
It's true. Very true.
When you're on a shoot like that, they shot that. Where was it shot?
Tucson.
Okay, because it was an OK Corral thing, wasn't it? Yeah. And there's just, it's a Western. There's all that male testosterone.
Oh, yeah.
You got a list of, you got that list that I just read, and that was just a piece of the list.
Jason Priestley was in it.
That's
Michael
right.
Biehn.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell's happening on that set?
Well, it's funny you should say that because I just saw Kurt Russell at the premiere of Snatched that Goldie is in.
Oh, yeah.
Which I thought was hilarious.
Was it funny?
Okay.
Hilarious.
Okay.
Don't listen to the critics. It's hilarious. Anyway, and somebody said there should be an oral history of the making of Tombstone, and I agree. I think it's time.
Yeah.
Because that was a up shoot.
What happened?
Yeah, well,
Val Kilmer.
Everything you can imagine. To begin with, the director who also wrote the script, Kevin Jarre, got fired. I can't remember the timing. It maybe 3 weeks in. Maybe.
Oh boy.
He was replaced with George Cosmatos. Both of them are dead now.
And how are you told of that?
Basically, I think we had no director for a few days.
So there was no production stoppage.
I think we continued because of the producer was Andy Vanya, who was of the school of just keep shooting.
Right.
And that's when Kurt Russell stepped in and was kind of like the captain of the football team, and he was fantastic. And then George came on, and, at that time he was like kind of like, who? What has he done? And he was, considered hackish,
Right.
And I think it worked. I think that somehow all the shit that was going on behind the scenes George coming in, who actually knew how to make a popular popcorn movie, combined with this kind of fantastic arty script, worked in some bizarre way. But it's amazing that it worked.
That's almost what you need. You need a popcornish element as well, and hope that it has those real artsy underpinnings. What were the fucked up things that were going on behind the scenes?
Oh, starting with what you're saying about the testosterone. Like, because Kevin Jarre wanted such realism, everybody was living their character.
All right.
And so they were all allowed to be as cowboyish as they wanted to be, with the drinking and the whoring and all that stuff. And that was going on all day long, all night long.
Wow.
And then you have the girls, and we're just literally corseted, in the heat in Tucson with layers of petticoats on. And so the girls were in their own faction, and it was wild.
You girls were circling your wagons against the guys?
Yeah. And then we would all just stay at the Holiday Inn, and there was one of those kidney-shaped pools, in Tucson in the middle of summer, and then we'd all just drink a bunch of tequila and get naked and jump in the pool together. It was just crazy.
Wow.
That sounds amazing.
It was great.
So
I mean, seriously,
it was great.
That sounds like the kind of movie, set that I want to be on.
Yeah.
It's like summer
In
camp
another
where
state,
the counselor never shows up.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and then Billy Fraker was the DP on that, who's, hugely successful Oscar-winning DP. And George Cosmatos would be eating all the time on the set. He was a rather large man, to the point where he would just take up the cheese whiz can and put it in his mouth. And then Billy and he got in a fight, and he took a cup of Pepsi with ice in it and threw it at Billy's head. And Billy stormed off the set. This is like an award-winning DP. He storms off the set, goes back to his motel room, not fancy, and refuses to come to set until he gets an apology. And so, again, 2 days go by.
Wow. Oh, my God.
Just keep shooting. Kurt Russell back at the helm.
That's right. We're used to this. No problem.
Kurt's like, tags in.
Yeah.
And did people buy? I mean, I met Kurt. I had dinner with Kurt and Goldie once years ago when I was working with their kid on a show.
Right.
And he was like one of the most alpha male dude. Just not like he was barking orders or anything, but just the energy that he exudes is incredibly like. Whatever you say, Mr. Russell. Did he end up at the sort of top of the?
Well, it's funny because he and Val Kilmer were kind of like yin and yang. They were the perfect combination.
Yeah.
Because Kurt is that all-American baseball playing guy who he's a libertarian. I mean, he's a true libertarian, you know, and he believes in guns and all that stuff. And then Val is this kind of subversive, Doc Holliday kind of guy. And somehow it was a great team. They really worked well together, really well. So I never felt like Kurt was bossing anybody around. He couldn't because Val was there,
Right.
And it worked.
I was just more curious if people just sort of naturally deferred to him ultimately.
But they did in that kind of all-American football captain way, the golden boy.
Right.
Yeah.
With that many legitimately talented people, too. I mean, you got the testosterone, and they're all very talented.
Yeah, and they're all taking it very seriously.
Yeah, I would just think that would be combustible, So there probably were a few clashes along the way.
Yeah, it was, and we had real cowboys, too, because of all the horses.
Oh, sure.
I mean, can you look into doing that? Can you guys?
I think somebody should do it. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to talk to Kurt about it.
Yeah.
Sounds like a GQ.
You think so?
I think so because it's such a manly movie.
Yeah.
I bet there's a writer who would love that at GQ.
Yeah.
What year was that?
I think 92,
Early
92, something,
90s,
92, 93.
Well, if we're going to talk about crazy ass scenes in your movies, we have to talk about Exit to Eden because
everybody always wants to talk about
because it's the craziest movie. It is and let me say first off the bat, you were terrific in it, but it was the weirdest toned movie. Because of Garry Marshall, I imagine, that I can imagine.
You don't associate him with an Exit to Eden kind of movie.
Well, it's a funny thing because you were talking about what is it like to be at the height. That was my nadir.
No.
I mean,
really?
People should know that, like, before that movie came out, I was getting, like, scripts on my doorstep every night, $1 million offers. The minute that movie came out, stopped.
Really? I'm sorry if I brought
Stopped.
up that.
No,
Good job,
but
Josh.
No, it's a lesson in Hollywood because somehow I took the brunt of it, which I think is kind of
Which is not fair
dumb.
at all, I can say.
Kind of like I didn't kill anybody, you know. But
you were one of the higher profile people in the movie, unfortunately.
well, but
You were the core of the movie, sort of. You
Yeah,
know,
I
you
mean,
you had to hold it
I
all
think
together.
the producer of the movie, Frank Price, was like, well, people didn't want to see you like that. I'm like, no, I'm an actor, and I think they were fine seeing me like that, but how about the movie, you know?
Yeah.
And I think what you were raising about Garry Marshall is true, and I adore Garry. May he rest in peace. And we remained friends. But, the original book, Exit to Eden, was an Anne Rice novel,
Right.
which is actually a really good feminist track about women and sexuality. And basically, that's why I did it, because I think the point of her book is that women want to be in control so much that they lose sight of their inner vulnerability, which is, the epitome of a dominatrix.
Right.
She's always the one in control, and at some point you have to give up control, if you want to have love in your life.
Right.
This movie, for those who just don't know, they go to this place, which is a
Fantasy Island, kind of.
yeah, right. It's a BDSM. It's a
Yeah.
bondage discipline
Right.
scene.
Yes.
Right.
But there's a crime that's taken place,
Right.
and Dan Aykroyd and Rosie O'Donnell are sent to solve it.
Well, it was a weird.
But I think what happened was, I think Garry Marshall was actually very interested in the BDSM, as you said very correctly. I'm impressed.
Well, that's my community.
Yes, not SM. Most people say S&M. But I think he was scared that people would think he was too kinky.
Right.
And there was always two different stories going on, the comedy and the erotic. And I said to him, well, do you want me to be funny? He says, no, I don't want you to be funny. I just want you to be truthful. I said, okay. And they never quite melded. But then I think when he saw a rough cut, he got really scared.
Yeah.
So there were reshoots done to
On the comedy side?
pump up the
Yeah.
comedy,
Oh,
pump up Rosie's part. And it turned into a whole nother movie.
Right. Yeah, it was a couple of movies.
With me being naked for no reason,
Right.
Yeah.
I don't remember that part of the movie. God damn it. I got to go back.
That's a big limb to walk out on, for sure.
Yeah, it wasn't like I was supported in my nakedness.
Okay, be sexy. Okay, let's be sexy people.
Yeah.
Wait, is this where Rosie was in a
She was also in
outfit?
it. Yeah, she was also in it.
And she actually, I think she looked great. She lost a lot of weight for that part. I thought she looked good. But yeah, it never worked. But I somehow took the brunt of it. And that was a shame. Yeah.
It's that old man sexy. It's like Kubrick with Eyes Wide Shut too, where it's like this old man's version of what sexy is.
Yeah.
And trying to overlay it on something that's much more modern than that.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. All of a sudden I was seen as cheesy and I'm like, no, actually.
I thought honest to God, and it's not just because you're sitting here. I thought, you played the part. You had the imperiousness of a dominatrix and someone who was in charge, that alpha energy like I was talking about with Kurt Russell, but you also had the vulnerability of the story you were playing.
Well, Paul Mercurio, who played my lover in it, who was, got great hit buzz off of remember what's it called?
Strictly Ballroom?
Strictly Ballroom, who was a dancer. He never really acted again after that.
Wow.
He went back to Australia and started making beer.
Jeez.
Wow, that's unreal.
Yeah, and he was a lovely guy.
That
really
is so.
lovely.
This is fascinating to me because the way it lays somebody out like that you've just described, and even you. I mean, you were at the time it seemed bulletproof, and it even dinged you.
Yep.
It's remarkable because they must see. Well, those guys. I feel as though maybe the movie going public and critic and body politic of criticism and maybe even studios is more sophisticated today. They would go, well, that's a shitty script they had Dana Delany in.
Yeah. No, it's all about it didn't make money.
I see.
And it's perception. It's just perception.
And I think they treat women worse. I think.
Thank you. I agree.
I think men get a second chance.
Well,
to open a
there's
movie,
also a thing about the sexuality of it. People don't want women, to be comfortable with sexuality like that. They don't want to have humor mixed with sexuality. It's not like in Europe where there's all these sex comedies all the time. I mean, France has a whole industry based on that.
Right, it's either or.
Yeah,
kind of,
it's we take our sex very seriously here.
Yeah, it is a totally different place. The other thing I wanted to ask you was how that movie first came to you. Were you intrigued by the Anne Rice element, or were you?
No, I mean that's a good part of the story. As I was doing Tombstone, it hadn't come out yet, and they said Garry Marshall wants to meet with you. This is what you need to remember: the last movie Garry Marshall had done before Exit to Eden was Pretty Woman.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Sure.
Which was about a hooker.
Yeah.
And I had read the original script of that, which was called 3,000, which was the price that she charged. And I saw that. I read the original script, which was a lot darker. And I saw what he did with us. And people kept saying, trust Garry. He knows what he's doing. Trust Garry. He knows what he's doing. And he did it all in the editing room on Pretty Women. It was all put together in the editing room. And I was like, okay.
Was Pretty Woman something you read to possibly consider?
They didn't look at me for that, no. But I was sent to it to read. But yeah,
Yeah, you're right. When you tell it that way, it makes total sense. In a way, you went to the set excitedly.
Yeah.
You're going to do this. It's a kind of edgy project, but it's going to have this great humorous thing, just like Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's just unreal.
Yeah.
So you did a run on Desperate Housewives. What was that like? What is that? I mean, because that, again...
It was like a kidney-shaped pool in Tucson.
But you were not first season, right, on that?
No, I had been offered the show originally, which I somewhat regret because I would be very rich right now.
Kidding.
But you turned it down because it was too soapy for you, or what was the...
I had just done the show called Pasadena that Mike White wrote, which I love doing. I love Mike White. I think he's brilliant. And it's just too similar. I felt like I had just
campy,
done it, and it was the lighter version of Pasadena. And I thought, I think we've already done this. Didn't we do that with Sex and the City? Isn't this just Sex and the City in suburbia? I had no idea how many women out there still felt trapped in suburbia. Because, I've never been married, so it's something I've avoided my whole life.
I didn't know that.
But you weren't wrong about the project in your appraisal of what it was.
It's up to somebody else to decide that. It's one of the biggest hits ever on television.
No, I'm not
you were
saying
right that it was close to Pasadena.
Yes.
Too.
No,
I could see as an actor.
That's
sure.
what I'm saying. I mean, handicapping what's going to be a hit is a really tough thing.
Yeah.
First of all, what goes into
and it's
being
not like
a hit.
Mark Cherry was a name even at that point.
No, a lot of people turn that script down. A lot. Yeah.
I'm just saying that when you looked at it, you were right about what it was. Maybe not about, the incredible trajectory it was going to be on. But as it turns out, you do go back to it.
Well, yes. I mean, I came in the 4th season, and I'm really, really glad I did because I'd never been on a hit like that before. I mean, I'd never experienced anything like that before, ever. It was a phenomenon. It was male, female, young, old, gay, straight, American, foreign. Everybody reacted to that show. And anywhere, this sounds so silly, but my whole dream was to be popular in France. And I am now popular in France.
Awesome.
Nicely done.
That's all I ever wanted in life.
That has to be great, though, right? To be able to walk down the Champs-Elysees.
Oui.
Good. That's right. Hello there, Francois. Yeah. That's very, very cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. So you have been with all of these incredible casts, all these hunky dudes. You've dated people in the business. That's a bad idea?
It depends.
So they haven't all been bad.
Oh, no. I don't think I would date an actor now, but I've dated actors that were great. They're fun.
Sure.
Actors are fun.
They get it. That's what I like about actors. They just get it.
Yeah.
Having a really cool time.
Yeah.
All the things they get.
I just don't see how you could
as a writer, that's how I feel too. Actors, they just get it.
No,
They
I've
just get
dated
it.
actors, writers, producers. I don't think I've ever dated a director, though.
Well, that's insanely odd.
I know. It's too obvious.
Are you kidding me? There's a hit actress who didn't date a director?
And who I always went for was the camera crew.
Totally.
Yeah, because they're watching you the whole time. I like the focus puller.
So you and the focus puller on Tombstone had a little thing?
For
did
sure.
I on Tombstone? No, sadly, I had a boyfriend then.
That does not seem like a good movie to have a boyfriend walking into in hindsight.
Maybe it protected me.
Perhaps, but...
Yeah, that could have been a pretty wild
Val
scene.
Kilmer, Kurt Russell. I know Kurt Russell was locked
Well,
in.
that's the
But
thing
he
about
was at home
actors.
pulling his focus.
The thing about that whole show business world is everybody's so pretty. I mean, just the dudes are incredibly dudeish, and the women are these just, people like Dana Delany. I just don't see how you resist that. It's no wonder that, I mean, so when they say, oh, well, Angelina Jolie and Johnny Depp hooked up on of course they did. Angelina Jolie and whomever, and
Brad Pitt would be the name.
Brad Pitt. I said Johnny Depp. Yeah.
She might have.
It's
They
the
did
name
the
I must never
tourist.
speak.
She might. Who knows? But it's just like built in. It is. And it is. It's like a summer camp. You go away, you're all.
Absolutely.
I call it like, they're different eyes that you're looking for.
I actually have an Angelina Jolie story, actually. Right after Tombstone, I did this miniseries called True Women that was about the women who settled Texas. And I wanted to do it because it was the women who were the cowboys in it. I was like riding horses, a cowboy hat, carrying guns. And I was like, this is my anti-Tombstone role, And Angelina Jolie was in it, and she was 19 years old.
Wow.
Wow.
Is she a troublemaker?
I just saw that she was, what's the word, preternaturally ahead of her time. Like she knew things and how to behave on a set that I did not know at my age. She just
old
knew.
soul.
Old soul, been around the business, knew how to protect herself. And I mean, obviously she was gorgeous and interesting and a good actress. And I remember just going up to her and saying, "You're going to be a big star."
Did you say that to her?
I did say that to her.
Good for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she was.
Yeah.
Some people you
Yeah.
just know. We had kids, like I was on Freaks and Geeks, and like James Franco, we knew he was going to be a star.
Yes.
There was no doubt.
And Mike White was on Freaks and
Mike
Geeks.
White, that's where I worked with him, yeah.
And also...
He was one of the few writers I ever went, oh yeah, this guy's better than me.
And Paul Feig, right?
Yeah, Paul Feig was the first person I met when I moved to LA.
And Judd Apatow?
Yep.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I met Judd
That
when he
whole
was
crew.
writing on Larry Sanders.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That Freaks and
Another
Geeks
guy
group.
we lost.
Unbelievable.
Gary Shandling.
So sad. We did a whole show on that. The Angelina Jolie films that she's directed, did you see any of them?
I saw the one she did with Brad.
I feel like she does a nice job as a director. Did you get that,
in an old school way. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I like the locate. Did you see the movie she did with Brad?
No, what was that one? That wasn't The Mighty Heart. A Mighty Heart was the...
No, it was the one where it was supposed to be set in France. I don't think they shot
Was it the
in
World
France.
War II one?
No, it was the husband and wife whose marriage is falling apart.
By the Sea? Was that
Yes,
it?
that was
There
it.
you
go.
Yeah, by the sea.
Isn't that just a bad idea?
Yeah, well, it turned out it was.
Yeah. Someone else did that, though. Like Madonna and Guy Ritchie. Didn't she? I don't know. Someone else.
I know
some
what you're
other-
saying, though. Yeah. Yeah. I know what
Let's
you're saying.
explore divorce as a couple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That just doesn't seem like a great idea.
That was
That was just recently.
Let's explore
last year.
cocaine at an AA meeting.
Well, that sounds like a lot more fun.
No, but I just think it's hard to resist that, as I say. But I was impressed with, just because we're talking about her for a second, and I hope you won't think that this is well, I'm just going to say it. There are parts of you that remind me of this thing that I'm going to say about Angelina Jolie, and it's this. There's like a substantial person there. I know she's taken headlines, and I don't know her at all. So maybe for all I know, it's all BS, but it doesn't seem so. I've seen her testify before the UN on children's issues. I've seen her as an activist in that area, and she really knows her shit. She's not just some star who dusted off a press release and is just reading it or has memorized it. So I give her a lot of cred for that, and it's also got to be pretty tough to navigate through that world, the world we were talking about, when you're the focus of so much.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think you've got aspects of that as well. Just your activism, you're smart, and you also have had to deal with. And this is the reason you can't go on a cruise, because you are people will be coming up to you going, oh my God, can you give me an autograph? But anyway, it's really great to have you in.
Thank you.
It's been fun. You're doing a couple of things. I don't know. I think we're about 3 weeks ahead. Trying to think if we could. There's a stage production that you're part of.
No, I did that already.
Okay.
I did that. That was Night of the Iguana. I'm
Okay.
trying to do more
nice.
theater now.
That's
yeah.
great.
Yeah,
In
it was.
LA
No, we did
theater?
it at ART at Harvard and in Cambridge, and oh my God, it was a dream job. Get this: Night of the Iguana, James Earl Jones, Elizabeth Ashley, and Amanda Plummer,
Oh my God.
who are all like Tennessee Williams
Yeah,
aficionados. I had never done Williams before, and it was a dream. I would love if it goes to New York. I'm
On the
crossing
East-
my
yeah.
fingers. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
but I'm going next week to Provincetown, Massachusetts, where the Tennessee Williams Society Theater Festival is honoring me. So that should be a gas.
Jeez, that's
exciting.
great.
Is that-
Yeah, that should be really fun.
We had Diane Ladd in,
We did.
who's cousins of Tennessee.
Oh, I just read John Lahr's biography, which I highly recommend, of Tennessee Williams, and that's in the book. Yeah.
Yeah, I swear that she wasn't it Night of Iguana. She said she had some sort of hand in.
She said that she wrote the ending.
Really?
Yes.
Well, the ending is a little problematic.
There you go.
Glad we didn't book you on the same show. she just was, you wind her up and
Oh, yeah.
she just goes.
She's a 2-question interview.
She also is a star, one of those stars. Didn't you get that? Like she has that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, yes.
I wasn't there that day.
Yes,
so
her.
You missed out.
apparently.
Yeah.
Also, I was going to say, somebody else who was not like that, but who you expected to be like that, was not an actress, but a writer, Jackie Collins.
Jackie Collins was amazingly like
Dana,
3
probably
weeks,
my
be- 3
favorite
weeks
interview.
before she passed away. She was on her
Oh,
show.
wow.
Yeah.
So she had to be so horribly ill, and there was not even
I never knew
sense
it.
of it.
I've been to a couple dinners with her, and she was lovely.
Oh,
At Craig's.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
really lovely.
We bonded over Outlander. Have you watched Outlander?
My mother was obsessed.
So was
with
Jackie.
Outlander.
So was I.
I think it's
Early
like that
meeting.
bodice ripping.
Oh, yeah, totally. She's just lovely. And she was so not hip to, but she had her finger on the pulse of everything.
Oh, yeah.
current.
She was interested in everything.
Yeah.
Very much
And she
so.
was not, and this is what made me reference her, this huge star who just, when is this going to be over, darling? Or when is this, when are we going to start? She was none
no,
of
she was
that.
quite pleased to be
Yeah.
having a conversation.
She was so
She's
much
a writer.
fun.
She's by herself in her house all day.
Right.
She's happy to talk
And
to
she
people.
still wrote longhand.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I get that.
And then had someone on staff for years, the same person, the same woman who would then type it up.
And that was pure Mark working it. Getting that interview too. That was pure Mark on the street.
At Craig's. On the
Really?
street.
At Craig's?
Yeah, on the street
That was
outside
my
the valet,
friend
right?
actually saying to her, I went over and introduced myself because
Captain Gladhand.
well, it's not like I go up to everybody, but she was waiting for a car and I'm waiting right next to her. It's like not to say something would be a little bit awkward. So I say hi, and my friend who's drunk says, he's a big deal. You ought to do his show. And I'd say, well, I don't know how big a deal I am. Actually, I am a very big deal. I remember that the one thing I thought was just so great that Jackie Collins said, because we looked up her net worth, and it's like, she's got hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, there's the.
I said, boy, what must be great, you jump on a private jet and you fly to London, because she was both living in L.A. and in London.
great.
Remember that? And she said, oh, please, it's awful. Because I never fly private. She said, because the thing that happens when you fly private is that you have to talk to everyone on board.
Yeah, that's true.
It was great. I said, of course, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
That's right. It's being trapped in a living room.
Right.
Yeah.
And she says you're obligated. You're first of all obligated to talk to the guy whose plane it is.
Right.
Then you're obligated to talk to the other people on board. And just sometimes you're not in the mood.
I get that.
Yeah.
I don't like Uber for that reason.
Oh, I know.
They're chatty, huh?
I know.
We had an Uber driver on who gave up his life as a high-priced criminal attorney to move to Vegas and drive an Uber.
Okay, can I just
And
ask you
gamble.
something about Uber and Lyft? I was gone doing the play for 2 months, January, February. I come back in March, and it seems like everybody in LA is an Uber driver now.
Right.
That's the problem.
goddamn sticker is on every car, and they're the worst drivers.
Yeah, because
worst.
everybody
I'm
is
sorry,
a
are
driver.
you an Uber driver on the side?
No, but I my biggest problem is I drive a Prius, and now when I drive down any street, everyone is looking at me like if
Are you?
to see
Are
if I'm
you?
their Uber driver. Yeah.
When you got in your car.
And there's
yeah.
there's a lot of disappointment
Are
as
you
I
my
pass
ride?
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No, I'm not an Uber driver.
Well, this has been delightful.
Yes,
It's really
Thank
cool.
you, Mark. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming
It
in.
was fun.
We
Thank
wish you the best and hope to see more of you. Dana Delany.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Let me just, It's just something. There we go. Yeah. I want to thank you for all the ways that you support my friends on the Edge podcast. And if you haven't already, why don't you show your support and subscribe? What's the matter with you? Go to Edge Show. Oh, it's Edge Dash. What's with the dash? Stupid. All right, I want to thank you for all the ways that you support my friends on the Edge podcast. Show your support and leave something on their website, edge-show.com. Stupid. Why is there a dash?
edge-show.com.